yes, celebrating Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in fine fashion right there. What is that? What the hell that was? Like I said, celebrating Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in fine fashion with his introduction right there around the late 70s, early 80s. Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project. Anytime you saw Ricky the Dragon Steamboat coming down to a WWF ring back in the day, that was playing, and that was the awesome thing to have for him. So we're going to go ahead and get Ricky the Dragon Steamboat on here just a moment or two as our special guest. And as you probably should know by now, this is Off the Top Rope Radio, heard exclusively right here on KQCK radio station in beautiful Santan Valley, Arizona. Yes, it's Arizona. Yes, it's August. Yes, it's hot. But we're having a cool time right here in the studios in KQCK. My name is Brian Schenk, the host of the program like always, and sitting across from me pushing all the buttons and getting someone on the phone who's unable to talk at this moment is, of course, the everlasting Joe C. And we're glad to have you back here once again on good old KQCK Radio. Fantastic program for us lined up. I've got two awesome guests. The first one's going to be coming on the phone here in just a moment. He is, of course, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And we're also going to be having someone he feuded with in the early 80s in the World Wrestling Federation. Mr. Don Maraco will be joining us as well. The Rock, Don Maraco. So sit back and enjoy yourselves. Get yourself a cold beverage. Be ready. Sit back and enjoy. We're all ready to have a good time right here on Off the Top Rope Radio. I know that Joe's a little bit upset. Joe's not talking too much right now. He's still upset over the death of Horseshack from Welcome Back Cotter, who passed away yesterday at the age of 63 due to a grabber. I know you're still upset about that, Joe, so I'm not going to even get you on the air. Well, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, that was...
yeah.
I didn't sleep all night last night thinking about it.
I had a feeling. So,
what, did he die today?
He died yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Ooh.
I remember him, of course.
Because he's doing ooh a different way. But let's go ahead and go to our first guest, a very good friend of mine. He's a gentleman. He's somebody who's been inside the wrestling ring for many years. A lot of people look up to this person inside the ring and out. He's a tremendous professional. Matter of fact, he's one of my good friends. He is, of course, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Welcome to Off the Top Rope Radio. The Schenkster's here. Joe C. How you doing, Rick?
The Schenkster.
The Schenkster's here.
The Schenkster. How in the world could you never have a problem remembering that name?
No, that's why we're such good friends. You know, you sit there and you think about it, you're like, oh, the Schenkster, I know that guy. Of course. How you been, buddy?
I'm glad that at Cauliflower Alley I was finally able to put a face with a name or a name with a face, however it's phrased.
Yeah, well, I know it probably wasn't the best face for you to put a name to, but we're just glad in either way that you're part of the show and that you're part of our friendship here at the radio station. And like I said, it's always a pleasure and an honor to have you on the radio waves. And I know you've been pretty busy here. What's been going on with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat lately?
Well, as of a week or so, I've been home.
Mm-hmm.
Next Thursday, I believe it's the 24th.
Yep.
I'm going to fly from the Carolinas to Pittsburgh and get my lower back worked on a little bit.
Yeah, you were telling me about that last week, that you mentioned you had something going on with your foot, and therefore it was tied to a nerve in your back. Is that pretty much what they've discovered?
Well, you're familiar with what they call the sciatic nerve?
Oh, yeah, I've got a bad one. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you? Okay, Well, my situation is I got a vertebrae sitting at the bottom of my back that occasionally will pinch, pop out, jump out, and push on that sciatic nerve. And then what I have then, I'll start to experience pain down my right leg all the way down to my calf.
Ouch.
And then I've also noticed more recently, I get what they call drop foot or floppy foot.
Okay.
And if you know what it feels like to have when your foot goes to sleep and trying to walk, there's just no control over something that you don't have any feeling with,
Now, this may be a dumb question, Rick, but is this obviously attributed to all your years in the wrestling ring?
Well, that's where the doctors are putting it. I had in that area. I've got two herniated discs.
Ouch.
And one of the discs broke. They call it a disc matter.
Okay.
Broke away, and they through MRIs and CAT scans and X-rays. They looked at X-rays, they looked at the vertebrae, and MRIs looked at the soft tissue down there. They're suspecting that it's on that side of the disc to which my vertebrae will lean towards that sciatic nerve and pinch it off.
Ouch.
Or start pushing against it.
Mm.
And When you talk about the sciatic nerve, and I didn't know this, but let me give you a little what for.
Please do.
Up in your lower back area, the sciatic nerve is about the size of your pinky.
Okay.
Okay? By the time it gets down to your foot, it's the size of a piece of thread.
Jeez.
So, up in that area where it's at its largest, it's more prone to, and that's why people have a lot of sciatic problems, because it's such a large nerve up there in that lower part of the back, and then subsequently you start developing problems. Mm-hmm. Gravity and age also has a factor in it, too.
You got that right. It's funny you mentioned the sciatic nerve when you and I were talking before. I've been to the doctor a few times for my sciatica, and it's very painful. And like you talked about, being connected from your back with your disc down to your actual foot, it is very painful, and it can literally feel like if you ever hit your funny bone in your elbow, you get that tingling all the way down your hand. It's very similar to what the sciatic can do when it's been hurt and been damaged and whatnot. So that's not pain. That's not a very fun thing you're going through, and I know there's a lot of pain involved. So I wish you good luck with that surgery.
They look at it about an 80-20 success rate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking. That's pretty good odds.
Oh hell yeah, absolutely.
They may get in there after they open me up and find some other stuff in there. Maybe kitchen sink or. Some down spout or something, But,
maybe a fang from Damien when you wrestled Jake the Snake Roberts all those years. I don't know, something like that.
Well, I had my head traumatized when I took that DDT on the cement floor.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because somebody had sent me a question when they saw that I have you on the air today. And they said, he says, just ask Ricky this. And I'm just kind of joking when he said this. He says, what the hell was he thinking when he decided to go ahead and take that bump?
Well, let me say this. I'd worked with Jake Roberts, taking the DDT in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way you put your hand down just to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And after subsequently taking it numerous times, I felt comfortable. Mm-hmm. Even though it was on the cement floor.
Right.
The only problem that I had, and I don't know if it was my problem or the fact that the way it developed, was that whenever Roberts tucked you underneath his armpit, and before he dropped you with like maybe 1.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And he would look at the fans and put a grin on his face, and then boom, hit you with the DDT.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time when he put me under his arm, boy, he just went, and I didn't have a chance to get my hand down there to protect myself, and my noggin met the cement floor, and I'm telling you, it felt like a hand grenade went off inside my head.
It's
I still got scar tissue up there near my hairline to where I took the blow.
Yeah, you showed me that at the Cauliflower Alley Club. You showed me where it was.
Yeah, sometimes when I show people, I go the step farther and I grab their hand and I get their two fingers and I put it up there and I rub it and I say, "Do you feel it?"
Well, I got something to look forward to come April. Then you're gonna have to do that with me because I want to see how that looks.
Okay.
Well, we had Jake on 2 weeks ago.
I'll even turn around and pull my pants halfway down to show you the scar on my back. How about that?
Well, you know what? You can probably maybe text me some pictures if you want on that, Rick. But if you want to, what the hell? We're all good friends, right? It's all good. But, of course, in case you're just tuning in to Off the Top Rope Radio, we are speaking, of course, to a very good friend of mine, a fantastic professional wrestler. He is, of course, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, going under the knife next week, and we wish you all the best of luck on that. And, we could sit here all day and talk about your titles that you've won in professional wrestling. I got a list here I can go through. It'd take me probably about a week and a half. Let's just say that you have more titles in wrestling than what Lindsay Lohan has in DUI arrests, okay? Which is pretty impressive.
It's a friendly comparison.
Yeah, well, I don't know. She's had quite a few, and you've had quite a few titles. Do you know the actual number of titles that you've had in professional wrestling?
Do I know?
Yes.
Schenkster, the question is, do I know?
Yes, the question is, do you know how many you've had?
No.
Okay. I should have counted them all up. I was hoping you did.
Well, I never got the big one, though.
Yeah, the World Wrestling Federation title, is that the one you're referring to?
Right.
And, we talked about that on the last show, and I'm glad you brought that up because you probably can't see if you're not online right now yourself, but I've got the NWA World Heavyweight Championship right here in front of me that Ric Flair won for many years. And, of course, you took that from him twice, and I've got it sitting right here on the microphone saying it's a replica belt, of course. And in the nameplate, it doesn't say Ricky Steamboat. It says the Schenkster because, as far as I'm concerned, I'm the off-the-top radio heavyweight champion. And
deservingly so. How about that?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's very nice. But that title is very impressive to have held. But, you did mention the World Heavyweight Championship and the World Wrestling Federation. Was there ever a time or a talk about you holding that title? And if there was, how come it never happened? And I got a feeling I know why, but I want to hear your reason.
Well, the discussion of me acquiring at that time, it was a WWF title, never came up.
Okay.
Never came up.
Okay.
So, but I will do the assumption analogy, and that would be if you look back in the 80s, and even in the 70s, that the guy who had the Intercontinental Championship, the IC champion, was pretty much next in line.
Absolutely.
For the WWF title at that time. So I was just assuming, becoming the Intercontinental, that the next step for me would be the WWF Championship. There's that word that I hate to use, and that's assuming.
I know, the assume word, ass out of you and me. I hate that too. But, and the thing is too, Ricky, is that when you held the IC Championship, it was such a big deal because the feud that you and Macho Man, the late, great Macho Man Randy Savage, the biggest thing was that feud was such a well-planned out, drawn-out, successful feud, and the big payoff came at WrestleMania 3. And in my opinion, and I think a lot of wrestling fans out there will still say in the top 5 all-time wrestling matches ever. And you and I have talked about it off the air, on the air, about how it was, planned out, how you went through it, and just everything worked to perfection. Matter of fact, I had received a letter from Jesse the Body Ventura. I wrote to him, just let him know, hey, thank you for all the times you've had here and whatever else, and good stuff like that. And he wrote me back. I said to him, I says, Jesse, what was your favorite match that you ever called with anybody in any wrestling moment? And he wrote on there, Steamboat Savage WrestleMania 3. He said it was the best. And you can't go wrong with that because as the Intercontinental Champion, it was a stepping stone. But in my opinion, I thought the Intercontinental Champion during the time when Hulk Hogan was champion, to me was a little bit more prestigious because I think there was better matches as the IC champion, better wrestling psychology, and to me, just overall, it was more fun because you were on TV more, in my opinion, during the Superstars of wrestling shows, and I think the competition was more about wrestling than it was about Hulk Hogan being at the top. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Well, in a lot of what I got to, first of all, say thanks to Jesse, because I know that guy has called a ton of matches.
Yes.
And getting back to your opinion, a lot of what you said is true. Hogan, in my, and I've said this before, so there's no reason for me to sugarcoat it. His wrestling in the ring was not, was not all that great. If I had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably, gratefully give him a 7.
Ooh, that's being graceful.
He had a way of connecting with the fans, and it's pretty much if you've seen one of his matches, you've seen his career. I've always took a lot of pride into trying to make every match that I was in make it different from the night before if I'm working with the same guy. But it was an era to where I was the IC champion and Hogan was the WWF champion. And, when you want to compare work styles, it's, you are correct in the fact that whoever was the IC champion at that time did have a lot more going on in terms of putting, the match. Hogan was great on the mic. He had a way to connect with the people. He was bigger than life, a big guy and everything. But, the company formed pretty much everything around him, in which and he did a good job on what he was able to do. Mm-hmm. And that his best forte was being able to be, on all the talk shows and this and that, and he had a great presence about him.
Without a doubt. And ladies and gentlemen, wrestling fans, we are speaking, of course, to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, one of the greatest professional wrestlers to ever step foot inside the ring. And when I say that, I mean that because the psychology and the actual wrestling skill and the believability that you displayed in the ring, I don't think anybody's going to ever argue about that in terms of really, I mean, I know you don't, maybe ever sit there and say, oh, I'm the greatest, but you were one of the greatest wrestlers that ever stepped foot inside the ring. And I know a lot of people out there believe that and will say that as well. And, I think that today's wrestling, I know you're involved with it to a pretty good capacity with Florida down south, and you have worked as a trainer and, of course, as an agent for many, many years. But to me, there's something special about going back, 20, 25 years and turning on a wrestling match, or even going back a little further to like maybe the Mid-Atlantic area where you had some pretty good success as well. Was wrestling back then a little bit more simpler in terms of going out there and making the crowd really want to watch you? And I ask you that because today it seems like nowadays it's very much, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very technical in terms of putting a show together. You talked about it with me before in person about what it takes to put a show together now on a national level. Back in the day with Mid-Atlantic and even the NWA and Jim Crockett and whatnot as well, was it simpler back in the day to just say, okay, we're going to go out there, we're going to go 15, we're going to go this, we're going to go that, the ending is this, and that's pretty much it. Was it easier then than it is now?
I would have, if you tried, a lot of the guys at the training camp asked me, the same kind of a question,
mm-hmm.
and pretty much I'd go out there and work with Flair for 45, 50 minutes. Mm-hmm. We did a ton of 60-minute Broadways, 1-hour draws,
mm-hmm.
and just going out there and not discussing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, to have everybody sitting on the edge of their seats for 50 minutes.
Right. Right.
These guys today, they look at you with like deer in the headlights and say, "You got to be kidding!"
Yeah.
That was the norm.
Yeah.
That's the way we did it.
I know.
These guys today, they have to be, led hand and foot on almost everything. And what I try to teach them is psychology part of the match, and that is, why would you do such a big move at the beginning of the match? Then you're up running around, 30 seconds later.
Mm-hmm.
And people are saying, fans are thinking, wasn't he just dropped off the top rope on his head?
Yeah. Right.
And now look at him, he's running around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I try to, we have a term that we use in the business, and that is throwing away stuff and this and that. And, there's a moment for that kind of stuff, but you got to let it breathe. You got to let it soak in. You got to let the fans get involved with it. And I truly believe one of the biggest things that we did back when we were working was to be able to tell a story from the beginning of the bell to the end of the bell in that match throughout the time, to be able to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the biggest things that I understand in the WWE today, is our guys to understand how to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you get two boxers in the ring, heavyweight championship, and one guy hurt his right hand, so he's left with his jab.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the story of this boxing match, is that he might have broke a knuckle or something like that in the second round, and then for the rest of the night he is stuck with his left hook and jab,
mm-hmm.
and that's the story.
Yeah.
And I try to relay that to our guys. If you ever watched a boxing match in which a guy was in that predicament, you understand where I'm coming from. And this is the way I try to translate it, so that they can see it and feel it and understand that it's not all about being able to do a 450,
right?
With a half twist and off the top,
mm-hmm.
in the first 2 minutes of the match.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to tell a story and build it and build it and build it. The best examples I give is the Shawn Michaels Takers match, the Triple H Taker's match, with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee.
Mm-hmm.
What a story those guys told.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm saying, to me, it's one of the top matches that I've ever witnessed.
You know what I liked about it too, Ricky, is the thing I liked about that is that when you saw when you saw Shawn Michaels as the referee, when they were both down in the ring, Triple H, Undertaker, you kind of saw Shawn Michaels sitting there like, confused and just really doing the psychological thing by looking at both of them and thinking, what do I do? And having that look of concern on his face, to me, that was just as important as the two other guys inside the ring wrestling.
Oh, yeah, and without a doubt, that third party of Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, huge.
How about the moment when Shawn hit him with the super kick?
Yeah.
Triple H hit him with the pedigree, and then there was the cover, and Michael jumps and gets down there and starts to count, and Taker kicks out.
Yes.
Michael gets up. He's got disarray across his face, goes and sits in the corner, got his hands over his face, not believing what just took place.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, exactly.
What a story.
Yeah.
Very
well
These
done.
guys today have to be able to, even though that was, those three guys are at the ultimate level.
Mm-hmm.
They're what I consider guys in what I call the golden circle.
Mm-hmm.
The Triple H and the Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker and John Cena and them guys. They're the handful of guys they're in the golden circle. And everybody, to me, is trying to work to get into that golden circle. Mm-hmm. It's like the Knights of the Round Table with King Richard.
There you go.
So what a moment. I didn't want to know anything about that match. I wanted to sit there and watch it as a mark.
Yeah.
And, man, I'll tell you, I was probably marking up more than the marks were.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would never put Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in the mark category, but I know what you're saying. I mean, I think all of us pretty much, as a wrestling fan, marked out for that big moment because that was a really huge event because usually it's between the two guys, but like we talked about, Rick, adding that third element with Shawn Michaels as having all the history between between Undertaker, the whole thing about, well, I couldn't beat him, so how are you going to beat him? But if he wins, then it makes me look bad. But if you don't win, then you're not, there was so many things going on, and it made you think, and that's where the psychological thing came in. That was a well-laid-out match, just like with you and the Macho Man, like I talked about 25-something years before.
Well, how about leading up to the Triple H and Shawn Michaels where H and Undertaker were in the ring and they're doing a impromptu, debate interview back and forth, and Taker, just when you think he's about finished, and he turns to walk away, and then he turns back, and you know what he says to Triple H?
I know what he says. Shawn Michaels better than you.
He was better than. Oh my God! Yeah. Whoa!
And you know what was so great about that, Ricky? You know what was so great about that when he said that? That was just enough to get that audience to pop like a mofo, and that's exactly what they did.
Man. Because up to that point, here is Shawn Michaels and Triple H, and they're best of buddies.
Mm-hmm.
And, what was that? DX stuff that they did as tags, and and then even in their interviews throughout the 10 years, they were the best.
Right.
And Taker to say that to H, just to throw a little swerve into H's mind, to make him feel like, oh, really? You think that he's better than me? Just to plant the seed.
Yep.
And what a perfect one line there.
Yep.
And plant the seed. And everybody in the whole. You should have been out in the audience when he said that. Oh my God! That was tremendous.
Tremendous stuff. That was very good. It was a very good angle, and I remember that quite well, and it was a great build-up. And, of course, wrestling fans, in case you're just tuning in here to Off the Top Rope Radio, we are speaking, of course, to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And, Ricky, we got about a good 10 minutes left, I think, here, 8-10 minutes or so. But I wanted to read a question from a good guy out here. His name is Jeff, and Jeff said, Brian, Ricky should have some great memories of their time together working with Dean Ho, also known as Dean Higuchi. It says here, Don from the early to mid-'70s and Ricky from Georgia. Or Don, when I say Don, I mean Don Maraco, because Don Maraco is going to be on after you, and I want to get your opinions on Don with your feud. But he says, in Georgia around 1977 or time, he said, ask Ricky the Dragon Steamboat about Dean's wife yelling at him to come eat dinner with them across the way in the same apartment complex. And about the time that he and Dean washed Ricky's new car when he snuck up on Dean for a visit.
Well, it's the guy that asked that. As you were telling me, I vaguely start to remember. His wife's name was Rose.
Okay. And
she was of German descent.
Ah, okay? Sehr gut, yeah.
Great cook. And I met Dean in and around 1976 through a little bit of 77, almost a year.
Okay.
And I ended up riding with him a lot. He's the guy that actually showed me and taught me how to chop.
Okay.
And not too many people know that.
I didn't know that.
Remember, Rose was always when whoever rode with Dean to the shows and then back to the apartment complex, it was a given that you were invited to his house for a sit down to eat.
Okay.
And my God, at 1 o'clock in the morning, you wouldn't believe it was what a buffet. And even at lunchtime. And I understand even to this day, I think they settled up in somewhere up in the Northwest, like Portland, Oregon, or up in that area, where they opened up a deli. And I understand that it's doing well because it's just, the way they service people is the same. They carried on the mentality as, back in the 70s when I was riding with them. Mm-hmm. And I do remember times when we used to, wash our cars together. I'll tell you a real quick story about Dean and I. We went to the gym one time to work out. Not one time, but many times we went to the gym to work out.
Okay.
And I'm laying down and I'm doing bench presses. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm working my way up to a pretty heavy weight, and he spots me, and he helps me get it off the rack, and I start to get a couple of reps with it. And just when I think I'm going to get another rep, I get about halfway up, and it starts to sink down, and I'm looking up at Dean, and I'm saying, I need help. Man, dude.
Are you still there, Rick? Oh, okay.
You know what he did?
What did he do?
He standed. What do you think a guy would do with that if you're bench pressing and you're looking up at him and I said I need some help with this last rep? Normal guy would reach down and grab the bar and start to pull up, right?
I would, sure.
He pulled his drawers down to his knees, turned around and sat his butt on my face.
Oh no! Why? Little Rikishi action about 20 years early, huh?
Yeah, that's I say, I came out from underneath. I got that rep. I racked it, and I came out from underneath wanting to fight.
Oh, but you got it up over on top of the bar, right? You got it back up on the rack.
Right.
Oh.
He said, hey, brother, don't get mad at me. You got that last rep, didn't you?
Jeez. I'll tell you.
He pulled his gym shorts down to his knees, turned around, and squatted on my face.
Oh, my God. I hope you went to the showers real quick after that.
Oh, I was sitting up fury.
Oh, man. I can just imagine that. I'm thinking Ricky the Dragon Steamboat doing reps and somebody had to maybe see that. Oh, my God. But, this is a guy who was very influential to you and, taught you how to chop and was like that. And I think he is up somewhere near the Oregon area, Washington area. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon. Not somewhere out there in the Northwest.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd like to get him on the air one day and talk to him and obviously ask him about the old bench press question. I'll see if he'll admit to it.
I have another story about it, Dean, but I can't tell you that on the air.
Well, we'll you know what? I'll remind you either off the air someday or when we're at CAC. I'd love to hear it.
I'll share that with you out there at Cauliflower Alley in April.
Okay, what I'll do is I'm going to buy you a Coors Light. I'm going to walk up to you and I'm going to say, Ricky, Tell me that Dean Ho story, and then we'll just go from there. How's that sound?
I'll give you a little hint. It involved garbage cans.
Uh-oh. Okay. I don't know where I can go with that one, but I'm going to bring that up as well in case you may not recall. But I'm sure you can remember. I can't wait to hear the story. And, Ricky, listen, before we go, seriously, you're a good friend. I really appreciate you coming on the air. You're always a great guy to talk with. You're funny. You've got some fantastic stories. You are a true professional in this business called professional wrestling that I'm a fan of and that I know a lot of people are. I want to say good luck, Godspeed with your surgery next week. I know everything will be just fine. Everything will be okay. You're going to get through it, and I look forward to maybe calling you in a couple weeks and checking up on you and see how you went and how you did. And best of luck to you for that, and I'm going to be praying for you, buddy.
Okay, Schenkster, thank you very much. Hey, when we talked before, did I ever indulge and give you a couple of stories about a very good friend of mine, Tony Atlas?
I don't think so.
Well, next time we do another radio talk,
okay,
remind me about that. And I've got and these are stories that I can say on the air.
Okay.
So I got a couple of good Tony Atlas stories.
Okay, I'm writing it down right now so that I have my notes for the next time. Tony Atlas stories, and I'm going to write here Dean Ho stories as well. Here are a few more of those. And like in 30 seconds that we have left, Ricky, we got Don Maraco coming on in just a few seconds. How about a quick word about Don Maraco himself, the wrestler, the athlete, the person?
You know, tell him that I said that when I was watching him in the late 60s and early 70s in Florida Championship Wrestling,
okay,
he was one of my favorites.
Okay.
And then I couldn't believe that up in the mid-'80s, the World Wrestling Federation at that time, that him and I hooked up, and he was working as a heel.
Okay.
I will say this about a guy that weighed 285, 290, knew how to get a ton of heat. He had Mr. Fuji on the sidelines. But when it came time for my comeback, that big son of a gun was up and feeding and bumping and feeding and bumping. He had snot running out of his nose and saliva out of his mouth, but it was, and I don't know where he was getting the air from, but that son of a gun was there feeding me and giving me everything that I deserved. Nice. In the course of a babyface comeback. What a great guy.
Nice. I'm gonna have him on in just about 2 minutes here, so I'm gonna definitely bring that up and let him know you said hi and pass on those kind words, because when he did start out, he was a huge babyface in the day, like you said, and he was a great heel at Fuji, and you guys had some fantastic matches. And
ask him if he remembers the time that he took my black belt karate belt and put it around my neck and threw me over the top rope and had me hanging.
Oh, that's one of my questions right here on my list already, because that was a great moment there. Is there something about it that you wanted to say, or is it just something that he'll know?
I've had people ask me about that moment, and it was never rehearsed. We never got to the building early and just tried out to see what happens. We just winged it. And I had all my trust in him. I just remembered that when he started wrapping that thing around my neck, I had to get a hand up in there to grab a hold of it. But it was a totally unexperienced feeling that when I got tossed over the top and was hanging there. And if you look back on it, my feet were a couple inches off the floor. It wasn't like I could support myself. Mm-hmm. But man, I'll tell you, the wind was getting cut off. But it worked. It worked.
I think Fuji was giving you a couple in the ribs, too, with the cane at that time, too, wasn't he?
That is right.
Yeah.
That is right.
Yeah, I got the good memory going. I remember those matches. I remember a lot about Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And, again, Ricky, thank you so much, buddy. Like I said, all the best with your surgery next week. Everything will be just fine. Say hello to your beautiful wife and all your great family out there, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right, Schenkster.
All right.
Give me a holler back in a couple weeks and just to check up to see how this old fart's doing.
You better believe I will. We're going to talk off the air and catch up. That'll be a great thing, my friend. Listen, you take good care and you be good, all right?
Okay. Talk to you later.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dragon. See you, buddy. All right, there you go. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Good friend of mine, someone who is a true professional, someone who is obviously one of the best that there is. And if you look back at a Ricky the Dragon Steamboat catalog in professional wrestling and you look and see what he's done in this business, it's tremendous. He's had matches with people like Jake the Snake Roberts, Ravishing Rick Rude, Ric Flair. My God, he traded belts back and forth with him. The Briscoes back in the day. I mean, he's been everywhere with these people, and he is definitely tremendous. Say a prayer. Keep him in your minds for next week. He'll be going under the knife for that back surgery, and we wish him all the best on that. And we do obviously wish him all the luck. And if you guys are just tuning in here and you're seeing me on the TV screen as we have all the fantastic fine cameras here at KQCK radio station, you may see that I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And Joe, I know you're probably saying, why are you wearing that Hawaiian shirt? And I'm going to tell you why I'm wearing that shirt. You want to ask me first?
Sure. Why are you wearing that Hawaiian shirt, Brian?
To pay homage to one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time who's going to be on our show here in just about 10 seconds. He is, of course, Don Maraco, the true rock in the business. He is, of course, from the great Sunset Beach, Hawaii, and he's with us right now on Off the Top Rope Radio. Don, welcome to the program, sir.
Hey, how you doing? Aloha for your Hawaiian shirt.
I was sitting there getting out of the shower today, coming down to the station. I'm sitting looking at my 8 pieces of clothing, and I'm going, what should I wear? I'm like, oh, the Hawaiian shirt. Yes, of course. Pay homage. It's a nice one, too. You ought to see it. I'm going to take a picture, autograph it, and send it to you. How does that sound?
There you go.
Don Maraco, ladies and gentlemen, right here of great wrestling fame. We just had on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat before you. We talked for about a good 30 minutes, and he had nothing but great things to say. I want to bring those up as we go on with the interview. But first of all, how are you doing out there in that beautiful state of Hawaii? How are things going personally and on a professional level with Don Maraco?
Oh, everything's fine. I'm great. Just, living in Hawaii, so it's hard to complain about that.
Yeah, no kidding.
And, work's going good. Business is going good.
Nice. I understand you got a couple...
3 new grandkids.
I was just going to ask that. I heard you got a new one, too, right? Just recently?
Yeah, almost 4 months.
Wow, that's fantastic. Congratulations to you.
Oh, well, I just been standing on the sidelines.
Well, you're going to be turning another year here, and I think on September 10th, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right, yeah, next month, another year older.
Wow. I think you're going to be
more crippled.
49, I think, is what you're turning, if I'm not mistaken here. Let me look at my notes.
Oh, boy, thanks a lot. Yeah, okay, the check's in the mail.
All right, great. I tell you, I'll settle for an autographed picture for our wall. How does that sound? All right.
Great.
Now, of course, we're talking to the true rock, Don Maraco, right here on Off the Top Rope Radio on KQCK, Santan Valley, Arizona. It's a pleasure to have you here. We've had you on the show before, and we had some pretty good comments and questions from the people out there. And we can go over your career here and whatnot too. I want to kind of talk about some of the territories you worked, but when I talked to you off the air before, we called to confirm the interview, and you mentioned that you said, I'll be all ready to go. I got the dogs walked and all that good stuff. Tell me what kind of dogs you have, because I'm a huge dog lover, and I know you are as well.
Oh, yeah, I got 5 of them.
5 dogs?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
You running a kennel over there?
I got a pit that's about 105.
Oh, my God.
2 labs that are old, so they're, I've had them. They were born on my deck here. They're almost 14 years old.
Holy cow!
So they're kind of on their last legs. And then I got a Great Dane Mastiff mix. He goes about 165 pounds. Loves to go in the water. He's one of all the ones in his litter. He's the only one that swims, and can he swim?
Well, I've heard that. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's that?
I've heard that Mastiffs are very much into the water. That's what I've heard.
Well, maybe. Maybe Masters are. I don't know which. According to my wife got them from her girlfriend, guy I work with, and all the litters around, and I guess none of the other dogs swim.
Wow.
But he can really swim right out here at Sunset too. So he's not swimming in any pool.
They swim out in the ocean, huh?
Yeah.
That's nice. It's funny because I have a Rhodesian Ridgeback mixed with a boxer, and the Rhodesian Ridgebacks are noted for loving the water, and I'll tell you what, he definitely loves it. We got a pool in our backyard, and anytime that he can get out there in this weather and get out there and take a swim, he definitely loves that. Isn't that cool to watch a dog just enjoying that water like that and being so human-like? Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's salt water.
Fleas, too.
Yeah, it sure does, yeah. But let's go on with your career here, because obviously, you're a professional wrestler. You've been for many, many years. I mentioned a moment ago, we had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat on before you, and I told him that you were going to be coming on the air next, and he was really excited to hear that, because he said, I'll tell you what, he says, I remember watching Don as a big baby face back in the Florida days, late 60s, early 70s, and he said, to have our big matches in the mid-80s, when you had Mr. Fuji and you were one of the biggest heels in the business, he said, I really looked up to him as a heel, and he says, I'll tell you what, back in the day when we had our matches and, it was time for my comeback, he says Maraco would sit there and bump like a madman. He'd take everything that he had. He'd give you everything that he had. He said, the sweat pouring down, the snot coming out of the nose. He says, anytime it came time for my comeback, no matter how long the match went, he was always there as a consummate professional. And to have Ricky the Dragon Steamboat say that, that's pretty good honors. What do you remember about those matches, Don?
Well, I pretty much, you have to repeat everything he says.
Yeah.
Because he was, always contributing, always to the match, always contributing ideas, matches, finishes, whatever, and I could just echo his statements, just pretty much echo his statement completely, because that's the kind of continuity. We weren't good friends, although we did kind of get started by the same guy, Dean Higuchi, Dean Ho.
Yep.
More or less. I knew Dean long before, from the gym in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. He ran a gym out here and wrestled, and I started wrestling in Vancouver with him. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of, he was kind of an older guidance for Ricky when in Charlotte or that area there somewhere. Yeah. And so we both, kind of came up with the same guy. Didn't know each other well before, but seemed to click, and everything seemed to work. He worked hard, and I was working hard in those days, so everything, went down real well. He
also wanted me to ask you about the black belt, where you were hanging him with his black belt karate gi belt from the top of the rope. He said he wanted me to bring... Yeah, he said that was, totally unrehearsed. It was just something that just kind of came about. He says that he remembers he was about 2 inches from the floor, and he kind of had just enough of the hand up there to kind of prevent it. And I told him, I said, remember Fuji give him a couple canes to the ribs and whatnot. But he wanted me to ask you about the old black belt incident. What do you remember from that?
Well, what I remember most is a couple days before that, I tore my rotator cuff.
Wow.
So I had to do everything I could to get him over the top rope. Mm-hmm. I just, had no lift in that one arm. Mm. And actually, I torn it with him a couple days earlier. I think it was in New Haven. On a move he did, and I just I couldn't move. So it's it's kind of a push shove lift over the top, and then everything that happened after that was kind of history. Wow. We had a great run through all the way around the United States and Europe and every place else.
Oh yeah, and I remember back in the day. I mean, you were never a stranger to wrestling Broadways and going 60-minute draws and whatnot. As a matter of fact, I remember some of the 6-minute draws you had with Bob Backlund back in the day, early 80s, and you would do 2 of those in a day, and then a couple, the next day, and it was a different type of program and a different type of schedule you guys kept, back in those days too, and it was interesting because when you think Don Maraco, a lot of people think about the big powerhouse wrestler, but your stamina and your ability to work as a lighter class wrestler in terms of weight goes, it was tremendous to watch, especially in the earlier days like that.
Well, New York had gone almost through a transition period by that time, mm-hmm. where it was no longer they'd bring the big 6'6", 360-pound heel in for Bruno.
Right.
It turned into more of a wrestling thing, and around the country, mm-hmm. with the Terry Funk or Harley Race as a champion, or Jack Briscoe, mm-hmm. and those kind of guys. So your heels were became more athletic, or less less gigantic, and the matches became more more athletically performed, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that, sure. Yeah. And we are talking to the true rock of professional wrestling, Don Maraco, right here on Off the Top Rope Radio, KQCK radio station in beautiful Santan Valley, Arizona. There was 2 people that I found quite interesting that helped train you, and one of them who I thought was very, very underrated, in my opinion, was the late, great Ray Stevens and Ivan Koloff as well. 2 of those gentlemen. How much were they involved in your training as a young star?
Training not involved, but just experiencing my experiences around them, mm-hmm. and being and working with them, and going back to great late Ray Stevens. I'm doing another program today where Johnny Mantell called me a couple days ago, mm-hmm. To call in and say a few words about Red Bastien,
yeah,
who passed away this past weekend.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so I was, Ray was one of my, Ray and Dory Funk Jr. I guess would be 1 and 1A in my book, and then Ivan Koloff I had, some of my greatest matches with, and just had, he was such a tremendous worker, such a tremendous, it goes back to the repeat, rerun the Steamboat statement that I reran and reran that with Ivan because he would just, he would give everything to his match, and he just, he worked, as hard as anybody could work.
Oh, without a doubt. And, we talk about Don Maraco being, a lot of people may remember as the true consummate heel back in the day, but when you start out your career, you were a huge babyface, and I remember, talking back about like the Vern Gagne days in the AWA, the early 70s. I mean, you faced some of the greatest, like we talked about, Ivan Koloff there for a moment. You even talked about people like Bruno Sammartino, Dusty Rhodes, Larry the Axe Hennig. If there was somebody there in that time, you were right there wrestling them. And I also remember, I think it was around the mid-70s, there was a really cool stipulation that was going on. You were very much compared to the late, great Jack Briscoe. I mean, you physically looked like him. You physically wrestled a lot like him. And you had a great feud back in the day. As a matter of fact, I figure a lot of people may remember this. When Jack Briscoe was heavyweight champion, he had you in the figure 4 leg lock, and you were one of the people that I think maybe the only guy that I remember correctly that reversed the figure 4 leg lock on the great Jack Briscoe. His head got underneath the rope. The referee tried calling for you to break it in a 5 count. You were thinking that you reversed the figure 4, winning the match, but then, of course, the referee disqualified you, and boom, he won and held on to the championship. And I remember the crowd just going ape crap over that, and it was one of the coolest angles, especially with Jack Briscoe being such a big star in the day, for you to do that. What do you remember from that match and from those days? Because that was tremendous.
Well, that was that Bill Watts era, when Bill Watts was booking in Tampa.
Yep.
And so many tremendous things happened down there, and it was a natural kind of and like you say, the resemblance of Jack Briscoe and the wrestling style and everything. So that was pretty much a natural. I think one of the things I remember most there was the Andre the Giant finish that I started there with. I think it was he and I, because I used to be his partner. I'd like to. They fly me into Charlotte or Atlanta or wherever he was there for a big show, and we were, in the wrestling magazines and stuff as a tag team contenders for the world champions and whatever the magazine thing had. Yeah. But I think we were working with Dusty and I know we were working with Dusty and Ole. There was a thing there where Andre went around the ring and Ole stopped me, threw me over the top rope where Andre was. Andre caught me on the floor, and I was parallel to the ring, and threw me back over the top rope. I cross-body blocked Ole, and that was the finish of the match. It was Greg Soley's got it on film somewhere, but that was the start of that finish, I think.
Wow, I don't think I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen that match, but. You talked about Soley, of course, the late, great Gordon Soley calling that match with you and Jack Briscoe. I mean, the days of championship wrestling from Florida were, in a lot of ways, uncompared to anybody. But I don't think I've seen that one with you and Andre. Who did you say had a copy of that?
I think Greg Soley or Jerry Briscoe has all those. The Briscoes got all those films, or somebody got the Florida Championship Wrestling films.
Wow, I have to check that.
And then Andre used to give me a hard time because people had heard about that finish other parts of the country, and a lot of baby faces that he did with didn't trust him and wouldn't lay out flat. You had to come over the top rope at an even angle so he could catch you.
Sure.
And it was just like falling in a pair of baseball gloves. His hands, and then he just with no effort at all. He just pushed me and threw me right back over the top. He was standing on the floor and threw me back over the top rope.
Jeez.
And Ole Anderson, I guess, was close enough. I cross body blocked him.
Wow.
And that was pretty extraordinary.
It's like a couple of catcher's mitts right there on Andre's hands. He had the biggest hands, I think, of anybody in the business for sure.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
You know, Don, we got some people on the old chat room here that are checking in with us. A good buddy of ours named Diggity Dak, that's what he goes by. He says, Don Maraco and Jimmy Snuka, the steel cage match from Madison Square Garden. It says here, I was just over a year old. Wow. In a few more years, I've been watching this great sport for 30 years. What do you remember from that Jimmy Snuka match with you guys? Because that was the one on the top of the steel cage where Jimmy basically went to go get you. You moved out of the way, and then, you know, that was pretty much the whole thing. What do you remember from that match? Because that was tremendous.
Just all the build-up and a lot of the things we went through, you know, getting there. You know, Jimmy was having some personal problems outside the ring at the time, and just, you know, getting there. Then the match, of course, I think at the time we set a USA, that we were just going on the USA Network, and it was one of the largest cable viewed events, you know, up to that point, whatever, 83 or 84, whatever year it was. And so it was, you know, naturally, it highlighted my career, you know, and it's kind of a milestone in my career, and it's, I guess, one of the things I'm remembered for.
You know, I remember back in the day, too, they really played you off when you turned heel, and you were kind of the consummate heel, I like to say, and you were very arrogant and very, you know, to yourself and in terms of a heel. And I remember one time seeing you were eating a sandwich before one of your matches or on the way to one of your matches. I remember you eating like a sub sandwich or something like that and kind of showing them. Do you remember what promotion that was for? Because I can't remember for the life of me remember what that was.
That was the WWF, the old WWF. That was when we were going around, and it was kind of after my Snuka feud, and we were going around in a tag, Snuka and Buddy Rogers, and me and Lou.
Okay.
So I was trying to emulate Lou, you know, be like Lou, you know, eating, drinking, you know, the Coke and the sandwich, and boy, after I had the worst heartburn I think I ever had after that match, trying to, you know, wolfing down that meatball sandwich and
that's funny.
Drinking a Coke and working, you know, that was a Alka-Seltzer moment for sure.
Not part of your daily regimen for sure. For some reason, I was thinking that was Mid-Atlantic, and I don't know why, but you're right. I remember that with Captain Lou and everything else. Those were funny times and some great moments. And a lot of people may not know, Don, that you were the first ever winner of the King of the Ring tournament, July 8th, 1985. It was at the Sullivan Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. You had to go through JYD, the late great JYD, Sylvester Ritter, Les Thornton, Pedro Morales, and in the final match of the night to win the King of the Ring tournament, you defeated somebody who I didn't think was going to be in the finals, but you defeated the Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
That was weird because two heels basically, you know, fighting, and I remember Jim Brunzell was taking on the Iron Sheik for that final match, but Sheik went over, and then you guys fought at the end. That was just kind of odd. You didn't really ever see like a lot of, you know, heel versus heel, face versus face type of thing. What do you remember from that final match?
It worked out all right. You know, the Iranian thing was going, you know, Iran and the Shah and the Ayatollah and everything was going, was pretty much full bore at the time, you know, with the crisis and everything else. So it wasn't hard to turn baby. In that thing, you know, I just had to lay, even with Fuji. Yeah. You know, it was one of our simple things where, you know, I think the Sheik got salted or something like that. Yeah. And I pinned him, but it was, you know, it wasn't, you know, it was, pretty much the Sheik had his heat from, you just saw that whole Ayatollah, Iran, USA thing going on. So, you know, it didn't make sense to try and out-heal him. Because that wasn't going to happen. No. Not with, you know, not in Foxborough Stadium. We're in the old New England Patriots Stadium. Yeah, Sullivan Stadium. You know, that wasn't going to happen there. You know, white guy with an Iranian guy. You know, it's just or seemingly white guy, partially white guy. But you know, it was actually pretty simple. If you know, you let your egos go. Yeah. Because you know. No, I wasn't. You know, out healing him wasn't going to be an option because it was just who he was and what he represented. Right. So I just had to lay back a little bit, bing, bang, boom, and, Fuji did his thing, and there I was, King of the Ring #1.
There you go. Was there ever talk about you becoming a full-fledged baby after that, or was it just kind of like, let's just play it by ear and see what happens?
That just happened. It just was in the, just trying to a curveball they were trying to throw, and it seemed to work pretty well.
Well, it did. I thought it worked very well, and then soon after that, into '86 and going into '87. The whole Roddy Piper incident where you and Don Maraco and Adrian Adonis were teaming up and beating the hell out of Piper on a weekly basis. And then as time went on, when Adrian left the Federation in '87 and unfortunately, passed away soon after that, but you and Bob Orton were working as a tag team for quite a while. And if I'm not mistaken, it was at WrestleMania 3 when you and him teamed up against the Can-Am Connection. And that was where it kind of was teased that, you'd be breaking up and whatever else. You guys broke off, and then boom, the babyface Don Maraco came about. And there's always been something about Don Maraco, and someone told me this, and I can't remember who it was, but they said, and this is their exact quote, and I swear I can't remember who said this to me, but they said, when they put you in the baby blue, it's all over for you.
Oh, yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I got that. I had another radio. Yeah, that happened to Hercules, Hernandez, and somebody else, a couple other guys that went through.
Yeah.
That Vince fell in love with the powder blue with, and then they were gone.
Well, you had some good times as a face, though. I remember at WrestleMania 4, you came out and with superstar Billy Graham, the superstar, baby, and it was great to see that, you were working with him, and he was near the end of his career. He had the big, hip replacement at the time. And did you enjoy your time as a baby face with Superstar before you eventually left the World Wrestling Federation at the time?
Yeah, sure. Billy was always a good vibe.
Yeah.
He was easy to get along with, and he pretty much gone through, fought off all his demons. So he was living really clean at the time.
Nice.
And he was a good head, and the place that he'd been in the past, in the WWF champion and everything else. He certainly had his credentials. Yeah. A lot of he was still well respected and still is well respected.
Yeah, he doesn't live too far from where we're at here in Arizona. He's only about an hour and a half north of us, and I've tried to contact him, but the phone number that I had from a couple years ago is not a good working number, as they say. So I'm gonna have to see about getting another number somehow and getting him on the show.
I don't speak to him. But I hear of him from Steve Strong. Remember the artist Steve Sapello?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
The blonde guy, not the other Steve Strong. The big. I guess they're both artists.
Yeah.
But Steve Strong, he and Billy are still close, and they still talk a lot.
Oh, that's
so
great.
Every time I talk to Steve, which is not as often as I'd like to, but when I talk to Steve, he relays, what's going on with Billy, and Billy says how's it and everything else.
Nice. Well, listen, I'm going to give you a buzz maybe either later on today if it's possible or tomorrow, because I talked to you off the air before the show today, and I have a person of interest in Chicago who would like to speak with you about you maybe doing some sort of autograph session or meet and greet or something like that. He was very interested in speaking with you when he found out you were going to be on our show today. So I'm going to give you a call tomorrow and just give that information to you. And like I said, I'd love to put you up on the Wall of Fame over here so I can send you some sort of envelope with some postage on there. If you can donate a picture to the Wall of Fame for Off the Top Rope Radio, we'd really appreciate that.
Sure, I'll get some laying around.
You got some laying around? You got the old WWF days laying around there somewhere?
Oh, yeah, maybe somewhere.
Nice. I'll send you out some postage. I'll get your address tomorrow from you when I call you and stuff like that. It'd be wonderful to get you up there. I got, someone who you've wrestled, of course, back in the day.
I think it's on the internet. I think because I keep getting letters. People keep sending me cards and pictures and stuff to sign.
Oh, do you?
I try and get to them, but if not, I'll give it to you tomorrow.
Oh, that's cool. No problem. Not a problem at all. It'd just be great to have you up there with the likes of Tito Santana and Ken Patera and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I got a spot right above Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I got you right there, and I got it empty because I remember I walked in. I said, Joe, my producer, I said, you keep that spot empty because we're going to put Don Maraco right there at Ricky Steamboat. It's going to be an awesome spot. So, Don, anything you want to say?
One of the few times I go over him, that's for sure.
I like that. We won't tell Ricky, though, okay? We'll just kind of keep that quiet. So, but
all right.
Don, anything else you want to say here in the next couple seconds to all your fans out there who are listening? Anything you want to put out there?
Just thanks for the support throughout my career. It was a great career, great time. I enjoyed. It was a profession. It was lucky sometimes you're lucky to be in a profession where you like going to work.
Without
and that's what professional wrestling was. It's always not every day, but for the most part, it's a place you like being, people you like being with, and going to work and grabbing your lunch pail and going to work used to be a real pleasure.
With those meatball subs from Captain Lou Albano in the lunch pail. I like that. So
there you go.
But on behalf of all the wrestling fans, Don, again, thank you for all the memories you've given us, and thank you for all the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears, literally, in this wrestling business. You were one of the best, and we enjoyed watching you inside the ring. So legitimately and sincerely, thank you for all your time in this business that we call professional wrestling. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thanks for the call. Thanks for the memories.
You're welcome. Off the Top Rope Radio right here at Brian Schenk. Aloha to you, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Wear that shirt with pride.
I wear this shirt with pride all the time, even when I'm not on the air, my friend.
All right, brother.
All right, take care, Don. Thank you. All right, Don Maraco right here on Off the Top Rope Radio. Brian Schenk and Joe C., the Schenkster here. Great program as usual right here on KQCK radio station. Thank you to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Our best wishes and prayers and thoughts with you next week when you do have the operation you spoke of here on the radio station. Wish you the best with that. I'm sure you'll be just fine, my brother. And I'll definitely call you in a couple weeks to check up and see how you're doing. Thank you to our good friend Don Maraco right here as well. One of the best to ever step foot inside the ring. Two legends who had a great feud with each other in the World Wrestling Federation back in the day. We talked about their careers. We talked about some of the personal and other things they do in their world. And we thank you very much for being here, all you wrestling fans out there. If you want to send us an email and let us know what's going on, that's cool. And I'm going to tell you right now before we go, I have an autographed picture of one of my great favorites, Rockin' Robin. That's right, the lovely Rockin' Robin, the World Wrestling Federation ladies champion back in the day, 1988 or so. She sent me a very pretty autographed picture of her with the women's belt, autograph to give away here on the wrestling show. If you want to get involved in that, all you got to do is send me an email. I don't care what it says. Just put Rockin' Robin as the subject or whatever. Send it to Brian, B-R-I-A-N, the correct way, at kqcklive.com. Once again, Brian with an I at kqcklive.com. And we'll go ahead and get you in the drawing. We'll announce the winner next week right here on Off the Top Rope Radio. That's all you got to do. So I want to see those emails. Brian at kqcklive.com. We'll give it away next Wednesday, the 22nd. We have a very special guest next week. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but we're going to be back next week like we always are, right here at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern, and 5 o'clock Central Time. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen, wrestling fans of all ages. We appreciate your support, and we'll talk to you next week right here on this fine radio station known as KQCK at kqcklive.com. Join us on Facebook. We're there. We're not hard to find. Thank you, Joe C. Thank you, wrestling fans. God bless. Good night. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.
Another day.